and blood magic. This requires some Buffalo Trace. Welcome back to another day of Vlogmas, and cheers. This one, you're gonna need some strong stuff with it because we are talking about a quart of sugar and spice. Not to get confused with a quart of thorn and roses or ACOTAR and all of that. I have attempted to read it. I listened to like the first hour of the audiobook and it was just not for me. This was before I was really reading a lot of physical copies of books, but yeah, we need it because we're talking about fairies. We're talking about some weird interpretations of the Nutcracker, and this is a very spicy book. So I read this book as an idea that I wanted to read a bunch of Nutcracker books. It's actually the only one I got through properly. I will maybe talk about briefly at some other point a novella that I read that used the term Nutcracker in it, but that is a very different situation. So in all of this, like I said, this is the book I read called A Quart of Sugar and Spice, and it is by the author Rebecca F. Kennedy. I also did end up reading another one of her books called Jack Frost, or no, it was called Frost, because I liked this one a lot. I gave it this rating on what's its face on Fable. Again, I forgot what exactly. I enjoyed my time reading it a lot. It was not highbrow at all, but it was so much fun to read, honestly. I really enjoyed it as I was going to and from work, which was probably not the smartest idea because it was spicy. The thing is, I can't use the argument that people wouldn't know what's going on. I'm like, everybody speaks English in Belgium pretty much. That is something that they would know. They would definitely know. Like I said, it's like a 5 out of 5 chili peppers. It's one that made my little fanfiction heart sing. Yeah, so a little bit, we are going to go over a summary, and in this case there will be spoilers. I will again warn with some of the spoilers as we get further into it, but we follow Clara, and instead of how in most fairy tales of the Nutcracker, she has a little brother named Fritz. In this case, Clara has a younger sister who's only about a year younger, named Louisa. And their father has just passed, and they were sent to live with their godfather, who they'd never met before, and his name was Drosselmeyer, and he was a toy maker. And Drosselmeyer has control of their finances and their inheritance until they get married, or they're of the age of 30, 25 or 30. When they were much older, they are 21 at most, and they're kind of just resigned to their fate. Louisa is actually a little bit more of I'm going to find somebody, the first man I can find that I don't hate. Sure, I'll marry him. Clara, on the other hand, is more I just want to paint. Clara is a very much more timid character. She's much more ethereal, flowy, just wants to paint. Louisa, because we get this kind of dual POV chapters with the two of them, she's honestly, she's very promiscuous, and I don't love that. I love Louisa, actually. I find her kind of fun. It did throw me off because in her first chapter, this is not a direct quote exactly, but she talks about how she learned curse words from Clara's math tutor because he wanted her to say that while she was writing him. So yeah, that's right off the bat. I had not realized when I first picked up this book that it was going to be as spicy as it was. And I was like, oh, we are just getting into this. This is full-on erotica. Because I know Allie Hazelwood was Not in Love is more erotica. I'm like, girl, no, this is what we mean. Not in Love definitely has sex as a main point in all of it, but this is very different. And all of this, Louisa ends up sneaking into Drosselmeyer's locked room where she finds and it's a workshop sort of thing where she finds this Nutcracker and she thinks it's really interesting. She's just so fascinated by it. Because also with Drosselmeyer's toys, he's got a bunch of these wooden automatons, which is kind of makes sense for also this time period. The automaton was all the rage, and she's so intrigued by this Nutcracker that's and so she sneaks in to play with it and ends up splintering it and cuts herself and gets a drop of blood on it, and blood magic. he comes to life. And we later learn his name is Lear. He is the prince, he's the nutcracker. And Louisa is just shocked by it. And I would be too. And she goes to get like Clara, and both of them kind of think this is a dream initially, but then they realize, oh no, it's real. Like this nutcracker, this like tiny nutcracker that's wood is like human or fae. He's a fae actually. And they go one night to try to help him when there's this party going on, and they find the portal because Lear is like, yeah, Drosselmeyer keeps stealing and kidnapping fae, and like Lear, who is the prince, got caught like kind of by happenstance. Like Drosselmeyer has these different portals and they pop up in different places in the Fae realm, which I forgot the name of the Fae realm. It had a name. I think it does because like this whole series ends up becoming a like larger universe. And so they end up going back in there into the like Fae realm, and Drosselmeyer is chasing after them. And there's like all these different weapons because like Drosselmeyer has all these weapons to catch the Fae. And they are able to escape. You've got in the Fae realm, you've got Sullied and Unsullied. Unsullied are like the prince and his whole family. Like the prince is like the prince of the Unsullied, and actually he's theoretically the king, although he has not gone through the full like rites, so he doesn't feel like he can call himself the king. And the Sullied are kind of like the more evil characters that have let their souls be corrupted in some ways, that participate in dark magic, and like which includes blood magic. And that's where the Mouse King has kind of taken over. He was already like trying to encroach further and further onto the land, and the fact that the prince, who never took on the full powers because the ceremony had not taken place, like he's gone, so that means that the Unsullied can kind of take over, or the Sullied can take over, really. Not fully, but like he can conquer most of the lands. And that's where the Rat King comes in. So they're stuck in this like new land, and Clara gets like lost during a fight. And that is when she meets the Sugar Plum Fairy, who ends up, or Sugar Plum Fae really, who ends up being the cousin to the prince. So in this case, the Sugar Plum Fae is gender bend, and his name is Phineas, and my god, that man is very sexually active. And there is stuff involving some bodily fluids that apparently change flavor every time. I cannot believe I'm talking about this, but this was a fun book. It was so fun. So with that being said, they end up all coming together, and Lear and Phineas, because Lear is the name of the prince, they kind of hash things out a little bit. They've been getting in fights because they were cousins and they were more like siblings. Also, like literally, the nickname Sugar Plum comes from Lear because that's what he would call his like cousin, because he ate so many sugar plums for them growing up. And in all of this, the Sugar Plum Fae is like really, really into Clara. Like immediately, he's like, ooh, like he's feeling all warm and fuzzy, and so is she. And like she's still kind of figuring stuff out because like she's not a virgin. She has had sexual experiences before, like one, but is still very new, and all she wants to do again is paint. So she, like Lear at one point is, not Lear, Phineas at one point says, okay, you can just paint me whatever you want, because she offers to like paint for him because like she needs to do something to sweeten the deal. And with like Louisa and Lear, they're having this kind of like love-hate relationship. They love to bicker with each other, but Louisa is just like so intrigued with him, and like Lear has complex emotions. And also in all of this, both Lear and Clara think that like because both Phineas and Louisa are more promiscuous, that they would be the ones together, but they're like more just having fun. And so afterwards they end up, actually the house gets attacked that they're at. This is like the Sugar Plum phase. They're able to get away. And in this, they also are like able to take some of these spells, because like the Sugar Plum Fae is like a really good like spell maker, and they're all in these different candies and balls and everything. And so they find a band of people to kind of help them in like actually doing a combination of a couple of things. The main being they have to get everybody to the everlasting pool, or unending pool. I think unending pool, that's what it was called. which is the place where the Nutcracker can actually get like his full body back. Because instead, Louisa has to keep on giving blood to him, and he's getting more and more addicted to it. And in this whole thing, it's the question of like, oh, how is he any different than many of the Sullied? Because like he's also having to partake in blood magic. Because Phineas calls this out because like Lear was like a little too much like his father, who saw things very black and white. Phineas was friends with Sullied and Unsullied, so they end up like just going along, trying to like get to this pool of water. And the spoilers and whatnot, they end up getting attacked, and both the like Clara does get captured. So Phineas ends up like going after her. And actually, as I think about it more, it wasn't that they got attacked kind of, but it was more like Clara was out because she was pissed at Louisa, because like Louisa's like, hey, just be careful with Phineas, he's a hoe. From one hoe to another hoe, you gotta be careful. And Clara is really upset about that. When Clara's out, she gets attacked and goes missing. She ends up like being taken prisoner by the like Rat King, who is like in, similar to the ballets, a rat with many heads and whatnot. Phineas ends up like saving her, kind of, or he tries to. And he throws this massive bacchanal, and they're almost able to escape, but they don't. And in the meantime, Louisa and Lear are going to the pool, and they have to go through this like valley. And Louisa is quite the strategist. Like that is one of those things where Lear's like, you are incredible at being like a militaristic strategist. She is able to like sniff out when she has a feeling that people are going to betray them too, which is useful because people have betrayed them as they're going along on this mission. And on all of this, Lear is getting more and more addicted to her blood. Like he's fully like a vampire, biting her neck and sucking the blood. He also, because like Louisa is at points like, why you seem to really like me, why are you not doing anything? And at one point he calls her a hoe, which I do not like. Besides, and then also they get into the conversation about like he's worried that she would be bored and does not want to hold her back, and she's like a little bit worried about that too, because like she'd always planned to just like kind of get married and then have affairs. But that was also in like Victorian England, so oh well. But they are actually able to get Lear into the pool, and he's able to come out flying with these gorgeous wings, like, and they're massive because he also has like has the like most magical powers out of anybody in the land, as being like the king. He's honestly the king. And so they are able to kind of partially in the last minute save Clara and Phineas from being like, actually it was more Phineas was gonna get by the Rat King. And in this whole experience, Drosselmeyer shows up and like last minute cavalry, like fully destroying the room. And then they have a fight with Drosselmeyer because he's like, the Fae killed my parents and the Fae killed your aunt. And they're like, what aunt? He's like, that's why our father and I were friends, was because of our hatred for the Fae. But also in all of this, they're like, we could very quickly, so please give us back our friends. And they do. And he's like, you guys want to stay here? And they're like, both Louisa and Clara are like, yeah, we are actually enjoying this place. We've already accepted the fact that we are stuck here. We accepted that a long time ago when you just left us here. Because this is a critique I have on this. I have no idea what the timeline was on this. I don't know how many weeks they were stuck in places. Like, I was like, how many weeks did it take for them to go from like the house to the pool? Because also, and like how long did it take between when Clara got captured to like them getting to the pool? Because like, it seemed like they were stuck in a prison for a while. Not fully sure though. We have no timelines on any of this, but like, sure. Like sometimes with like romance books that you actually get a timeline. This one, I'm like, I don't know. It seems quick, but also really long. So who the heck knows? I was checking my notes. I could remember most of the plot, as you guys saw, just off the top of my head, because it was fun. Like, it was a lot of beats, but also it was fun, and it never felt like it was lagging. And there was like a fun number of like spicy scenes, but nothing like absolutely crazy. It was like I said, it reminds me of some like fanfics I read, where it's not like every chapter, but like it's a good like healthy dose of like spicy scenes. The thing is, like, we got a lot of Clara and Phineas, and I'm like, they're not the like couple I really like. I liked Louisa and Lear. I think there's so much more fun stuff they could have done with those two than with like Clara and Phineas, because it was very much because like Clara was still very much that like doe-eyed ingenue of like, oh my goodness. I more liked how self-assured really like Louisa was. She knew what she wanted. Like, she has a lot of fun dialogue and banter with Lear because she is not afraid to speak her mind and like not afraid to be open about her feelings and like whether or not she likes him, like her fears of becoming bored, the idea of being in a land where her lifespan is extended for so long. She's worried that she's going to be bored at some point. She doesn't want to do that to him because she's like, you are a really good guy. But yeah, I wanted more of that. I did appreciate though with Clara the fact that she was not, again, like the rake going after the like a virgin, that at least she had some, she knew some, but also she was very like scared to talk about her desires. Also with like Lear, I loved Lear. He was kind of he was my favorite character, honestly, even though he was kind of mean to like Louisa at the one point where he called her out, but also he has lived in such a black and white world from what it sounds like, that he was like, he'd said he'd only had like 2 or 3 partners because he's like, I have to also take into account the fact that I am in a political position. Well, in all of this, like his kind of self-hatred at points because like he thinks he's not worthy reminds me so much of Barbie Nutcracker. Like, for anybody who's watched it, like how the prince in like Barbie Nutcracker keeps on being like, I'm unworthy. That's the same thing here. He feels unworthy. And I was like, you, Rebecca F. Kennedy, have definitely watched a Barbie in the Nutcracker multiple times. I know, this is one of your favorites. You are a Barbie movie girl. Also, Louisa is kind of a similar character to like, or she plays into the character trope that I really like of a woman playing in a man's world and playing by their rules and doing it better. So like Margaret Beaufort and Princess Augusta from Queen Charlotte, like those characters, played by the same actress, actually. And Catelyn Stark, again, same actress. She plays these characters that are able to use men to her advantage and play within that like world to rise up politically. I really like those kind of characters, and Louisa reminded me of that kind of character where she knew that she's a woman, like, and that is only going to get her so far in this world. So she is going to make the most out of it and use men to her advantage, and I love that. And like I said, this is very much reminds me of like fanfic, and again, in a good way. I like, it's like, makes me feel like some of my fanfic reads, and I think if you just want something fun, and again, if you're a fanfiction girly, do that. Maybe don't listen to the audiobook out in public. I definitely had multiple times where I'm like, I hope my headphones work, or I'm gonna pause this and we're going to listen to this at home because I don't want to accidentally have somebody listening in, because people here know English really well. And like I've said, English is more like the 3rd official language than like German. There are, like I mentioned also, there are other books in the series. I don't think I'd read that. They go into other fairy tales and it's not bad. It's just not really what I want to read. So I'm not going to. Like I said, I did try to listen to Jack Frost, or Frost, I think, like I said, was the name of the book, which is another one of hers. It was a lot less spicy. Didn't like it as much. It wasn't bad, but I was wanting, like, I loved Jack Frost in Rise of the Guardians so much. And this was not giving a grown-up version of that Jack Frost at all. I did not get a Chris Pine voice out of that like character at all. He was Victorian artist, and I'm like, that's not what I want. I want colonial man who is very good looking. I want something like Jamie Fraser in this point, like Jamie Fraser in the later seasons of Outlander. Like, yeah, that is what I'd want if you're going to give me a Jack Frost. Or maybe give me just like Jamie at any point in Outlander, but as Jack Frost, that'd be great. So yeah, that was a fun book. It's not for the faint of heart, but I enjoyed it so much. And maybe have a drink or two while you're listening to it, as you're listening to some of the absurdity. I also did appreciate in the book that like the Faes were all kind of different like creatures. It's not just all these like perfect humans. The Faes that they were generally dealing with all had different like skin tones and different like antennae or horns or like skin textures. It was like more fun in that way than it was just like, oh, one thing. And Everybody is pretty much queer, which is great. So yeah, I had fun, and I have a couple more book reviews and a couple of books that I DNF'd that I want to talk about too for this like Christmas book review. So thank you guys so much for watching. Please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.